Hello, I'm Nathaniel Smith, and welcome back to Bookcasting. I'm sorry I've been gone for a while, but I intend to make up for being gone for a while by doing a much more focused story stream in line with, books and whatnot. So, yay. Today, I want to really speak about one particular subject. Shakespeare's Taming the Shrew. You see, I'm going to defend Taming the Shrew and actually explain that Taming the Shrew is a much, much better play than people give it credit for. It may not be one of Shakespeare's best plays, but it's definitely one of Shakespeare's most blatantly misunderstood plays, which is so wrongly misunderstood it's not funny. But if you'll bear with me for a minute, before we can explain how and why Taming the Shrew is nowhere near as bad as people think it is, we first need to understand how much Shakespeare's work is influenced by this, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. This may be seeming like a tangent, but bear with me please, and this will go back into Taming the Shrew by the end of it. Just please bear with me. The reason why I'm bringing up the Canterbury Tales is the Canterbury Tales is one of the most obvious influences of Shakespeare's, the vast majority of his plays. I shit you not. And I'm going to give you evidence to prove and support this, starting with A Midsummer Night's Dream. This is one of the Chaucer's tales right here, very beginning. It's called The Knight's Tale. Stories of old have made it known to us that there was once a duke called Theseus, ruler of Athens, lord and governor, and his time so great a conqueror there was none mightier beneath the sun, and many a rich country he has won, what with his wisdom and troops of horses he has subdued by the Amazons by force, and all their realm only known as Scythia, but then called Femini. Hippolyta, their queen, he took to wife, and says the story, he brought her home in solemn pomp and glory. And Midsummer Night's Dream. Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bring in another moon. But oh, methinks how slow this old mood wanes. She lingers my desires like to a step-dame or dowager, long withering out a young man's revenue. 4 days will quickly steep themselves in night, 4 nights will quickly dream away the time. Now then the moon, like a silver bow, new bent to heaven, still behold the night of our solemnities. So, both A Midsummer Night's Dream and The Knight's Tale of Canterbury Tales sort of end and begin with the Duke of Theseus and his wife. They're basically on their marriage, and there's a story in the middle that has absolutely nothing to do with them, that they just happen to get involved with in the beginning and ending of it. Yeah, sure. Now you may go, well, okay, but surely that's a coincidence because, like, history and so forth and so on. No, it's not a coincidence. It goes further. Just bear with me again. I gotta find the page. I saved it, but let's see. Here we go. There we go. And so it happened, yeah. And so it happened through the golden tide, into the garden from the further side came Pluto, who is king of fairyland, and many a lady of his elfin band, behind his queen, the lady Proserpine, ravished by him from Athena. I incline to think it is Claudian. You can read how she is gathering flowers in a mead, and how he fetched her in a grisly cart. The king of fairy sat him down apart upon a little bench of turfy green, and then he turned and thus addressed his queen. So yeah, there's the king and queen of fairyland. Again, another part in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And interesting, this is in The Merchant's Tale, so a completely different Chaucer story. But this is in The Merchant's Tale. And the king and queen of fairyland in this story, similar to the king and queen in A Midsummer Night's Dream, see the affairs, romantical affairs, happening between these mortals, and they intervene, causing magical hijinks to occur in different ways, but still. So the whole idea of A Midsummer Night's Dream, as you know it, was rooted in the Canterbury Tales. both in the Merchant's Tale, as I've just read here, towards the end of the Merchant's Tale, but still there, and the Knight's Tale. That's just from A Midsummer Night's Dream. But again, it goes deeper than that. Okay, hold on. I gotta find this other part here. So bear with me. Ah, yes. Right, okay. That's later on. Ah, yes. Right. Uh-huh. Okay. Sorry, it's just there's a lot of stuff to... trying to get the next page. I wanna... I think this is it. Yes, that's right. Yep, there it is. That's what I was looking for. Okay, gotcha. That was one, and the other was much earlier on, I think. Not there. Here we are. Okay. So the other major influence was in one of Chaucer. The other major influence comes from the Man of Law's Tale, which was very influential to one of Shakespeare's lesser-known plays, which is actually more influential than any of you probably know of. Pericles, that's it. Shakespeare's Pericles, and... yeah, that was it. Yeah, it's a Man of Law's Tale, if I'm not mistaken here. Yep. Yeah, there we go. Yep, the Man of Law's Tale. Okay, gotcha. Now, what the Pericles and the Man of Law's Tale have is incredibly similar story structures. So what happens is this. It starts out with a bride or a groom that are trying to marry this other... to marry their suitor, essentially. But in some crazy hijinks, they get threatened with death, have to escape by sea. In fact, interestingly enough, in the Man of Law's Tale, when she first leaves by sea, it does seem similar to what will later happen with the Tempest. I don't know if I can find that page for you to read it out, but I'll look for it here. Ah. Ah, darn it. Sorry, it's just a lot to look through. Where the fees to that? What letter is that? Where she assumed me as fourth of the ocean because lunch. Sorry, it must be a little earlier. There we go. I think. Damn it. Sorry, I can't seem to find it. Anyways, the point is the Man of Law's Tale, along with Pericles, run in a similar structure. What happens is the suitor tries to get married to this other person, but then their life gets threatened and they have to escape and flee. They escape on sea, come to another like land, island, something like that. They find this other suitor where they get together, get married, have a decently happy life, but somehow they get split up at some point through some seafaring adventure. They think that their partner's lost, even though they're not. And then at the end of the story, they find each other again, and hooray, happy ending. Now, the reason this is important is because Pericles would inevitably lead to the template for what would be The Tempest, which is the far more well-known play of Shakespeare's. And like I said, Pericles' entire story structure is influenced by the Man of Law's tale that I've just mentioned here. Sorry I can't go over it more, detailed wise, but yeah. Sure. So that's very interesting. And as mentioned before, with the earlier one was pointing out the King and Queen of Fairyland in the Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. One of the characters was called Prosperine, which more than likely is where the term Prospero came from, the name for the character in the wizard. Speaking of that, Prospero, later on in the Chaucer's Tales, let me see if I'm at the right spot. Okay, this is later. Sorry, there's a lot to cover, and I'm not even covering all of it. I'm just covering most of it. Here we go. Okay. Hold on. There we go. I'll read this real quick. And the magician caused there to appear before their supper parks of forest deer, and he saw stags among them, antlered high, the greatest ever seen by human eye. He saw 100 of them killed by hounds, and others, arrow-wounded, lay in mounds. Next, when the deer had vanished, he was shown a river bank. There a hawk was flown by falconers. They saw a heron slain. Then he saw knights at joust upon a plain, and after that a realist was entranced at seeing his beloved as she danced, and he, it seemed, was dancing with her too. And when the master of this magic view saw it was time, he clapped his hands and banished the figures, and farewell, our revels vanished. Yeah, that's where our revels now have ended came from. It came from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, specifically in the Franklin's Tale, where they go to a magician towards the end to make an illusion. Yeah, it's a whole nother story, but this part clearly was a huge influence on Shakespeare. So, gone over the influence that Shakespeare's Canterbury Tales had in terms of Midsummer Night's Dream and Pericles and even The Tempest. Yeah. There we go. Oh, yes. I remember. Yes. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to go over to see if there's anything else. Wait. No, that wasn't it. What was that other one? Hold on, there's one other. I'm trying to find it here. There we go. It was the Ides of March in the New Year. That's right. Canterbury Tales had the phrase Ides of March before Julius Caesar's Ides of March was used in Shakespeare. That was in the Canterbury Squire Tales. Just thought I'd mention that because it's fun. There's another also line, though I couldn't find it, that it's not exactly the same as To Be or Not to Be, but it's similarly structured as To Be or Not to Be, which unfortunately I couldn't find the exact line for that, but it's in one of the stories somewhere down the line. Okay, so I think that gives us enough of an idea of how much Shakespeare was influenced by the Canterbury Tales, which brings us finally back to Taming the Shrew. Okay, what the fuck does any of this have to do with Taming the Shrew? Good question. The answer is simple. Taming of the Shrew is... I forget whether it came out during the Elizabethan or Jacobean era, because I think it was Shakespeare was around the Elizabethan Jacobean era earlier and later on in his life. But regardless, it was the old school equivalent of Tropic Thunder. I'm not fucking kidding. Taming the Shrew is a parody of a story written by Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales. I'm not fucking joking. I am dead serious. It's a fucking parody. And you have to understand how insane And see, well, before I get into that, let me just show you what I'm talking about, okay? There's this story called The Clerk's Tale, okay? This is The Clerk's Tale, Canterbury's Tales. Now, I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but I'll read you a part of it, and then explain what The Clerk's Tale is, how that applies to Taming the Shrew, etc. So, it happened as it often does in life. While yet the child was sucking at her breast, the Marquis, in obsession for his wife, longed to expose her constancy to test. He could not throw the thought away or rest, having a marvelous passion to assay her, needless, God knows, to frighten and dismay her. He had assayed her faith enough before, and never found her good. What was the need of heaping trial on her more and more? Though some may praise the subtlety, indeed, for my part I should say it could succeed only in evil. What could be the gain in putting her to needless fear and pain? Okay. What does this have to do with Taming the Shrew? Let me explain. Okay. In The Clerk's Tale, I'm going to summarize this as best I can. In Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, specifically The Clerk's Tale, we have this story that goes something like this. There's this pretty poor woman that inevitably marries a rich king. And this rich king is a dick. He's a fucking dick. There's no other way around it. He is a dick. Basically, what he does is go around and abuses his wife. And I mean really abuses his wife. You think Taming of the Shrew's abuse is bad? Bitch. No. That's peanuts compared to what happens in The Clerk's Tale. Let me summarize what happens. So, first off, let me explain the female character in The Clerk's Tale so you have a full context here. The female character, the wife, is a submissive, docile, quiet woman that just accepts everything, and that's it. That's basically her character. And then she gets constantly screwed over again and again and again in the worst ways possible. What terrible ways? Well, for starters, the so-called husband pretended to kill both of her children just to see if it would raise a fuss from her or not. Not once, but twice, just to see if it would raise some fuss from her, which of course it didn't. She cried a little, begged for some prayer of repentance or some shit like that, and that was it. And he did it not once, but twice. And then on top of that, the motherfucker fakes a divorce and kicks her out of kicks her out of being a queen and forces her to go back to her father, which, remember, I hadn't mentioned before, her father was a poor man. So she basically went from being rich again to being back in poverty. And then finally, the bastard brings back the children. The bastard brings back the children. Yeah. And then basically goes like, psych, I wasn't actually doing that kind of thing here. Look, right here. This is your daughter, whom you so commended as wife for me. The other, on my oath, shall be my heir, as I have long intended. They are the children of your body both. Bologna nourished them and fed their growth. In secret take them back, and never say your children have been lost or snatched away. Let those that otherwise have talked of me know that I did this, be it bad or good, neither in malice nor in cruelty, but for the trial of your womanhood. Yeah! That's the original story that the Taming of the Shrew is a parody of. Now, let's put that in context to Taming of the Shrew. First off, the female character is actually a bit more progressive than people realize. She's actually an interesting character, and the whole dynamic of Taming the Shrew actually makes a lot more sense and is far more understandable in the context that it's a parody of a Canterbury Tale. The whole point of the story in Taming the Shrew is that the female character is a little shit. She treats everyone like shit all the fucking time. So basically, the male character who's going to marry her gives her a taste of her own medicine, so, to sort of kind of pay back for how she treated everyone like shit. Now, that doesn't make everything that he did necessarily right. It doesn't make the more nasty aspects necessarily great by any means, but it does put things in perspective. This is a parody of this original story where you had a boring, docile, submissive woman that just sort of sat back and let her children be murdered, or so she thought. The answer. Which, by the way, one of the smart things they did in Taming the Shrew was just completely junk the children death shit. It's like, no. That's a bridge too far right there. Yeah, and further proof of just how much influence Chaucer's Canterbury Tales had on this. Here we go. Weeping and wailing, care and other sorrow, I know them well enough by even morrow, the merchant said, like others I suppose, that have been married, that's the way it goes. I know too well, that's how it goes with me. I have a wife, the worst that there could be, for if a fiend were coupled to my wife, she'd overmatch him, you can bet your life. Why choose a special instance to recall her sorry malice? She's a shrew and all. There's a wide difference, I'm bound to say, between Grisidella's patience... That's the wife character in the story that I was just summarizing. What was it called? Clerk's Tale. Right. Where was I? Between Grisidella's patience and the way my wife behaves. Her studied cruelty surpasses everything. If I were free, never again the snare. We married men, our life is grief and care. Try it who will, and he will find, I promise, that I have spoken truly by St. Thomas. So this is where the influence for the parody of the Clerk's Tale comes from. It was from the prologue in the next story. That's why Taming the Shrew is not nearly as bad as you think. See, Taming the Shrew is the Elizabethan or Jacobean equivalent of Tropic Thunder. Imagine Tropic Thunder completely misunderstood. Like, nobody understands that it's a parody of films like Platoon or Apocalypse Now and shit, and everyone just thinks it's a form of racist bigotry because of blackface Robert Downey Jr. That is what Taming of the Shrew is. It's a misunderstood parody. It's a parody, damn it! It is a literal parody in the vein like Tropic Thunder, but for the Elizabethan Jacobean era, where everyone at that time would have known about the Canterbury Tales. The reason why Shakespeare used so many references to the Canterbury Tales, the only reason that could be is that the Canterbury Tales and Chaucer would have been as well known in Shakespeare's day as Shakespeare is known in our day, damn it! And this leads to the two most horrifying points that need to be made. First, the complete misunderstanding of how storytelling and stories work. Stories are not made in a vacuum. They're a fucking conversation. One person will write some story about this or that, maybe in just a brief summary or an idea, and then someone else will take it off in another direction. That's how stories go. And part of the reason why stories are so shit today is because we have such a narrow view. We only know stories that go back maybe, keyword maybe, half a century-ish. Going maybe as far back as like 50s that people might know of. They don't know much about anything before that. And this leads to a whole point I want to make. Like, part of the reason why traditional literature is constantly ignored and gutted for the modernist, postmodernist bullshit is not because of it's not because all the books in the past were some form of bigotry or some other stupid shit like that or anything. Nope. The real reason why there's been a jettison of almost all things classical literature or a manipulation of what that classical literature actually was about is due to the fact that almost everything in classical literature almost always goes back into a couple of main things. Either the biblical corpus or the Greek mythology / Greek philosophy, at least here in the West. It's just the influence of everything in all of past literature, all the way up until like the early 20th century, when the modernist training program in the schools started to fuck it all up and ignored the past of that. And part of the reason why so many of the classic literature was taught was because of how much one story influenced another story, which influenced another story. As I've just pointed out here, how much Taming the Shrew, a parody of a Canterbury Tale, came about, which everyone ignores because nobody understands that. It's, as I said before, it's like imagining watching Tropic Thunder not understanding it's a parody of stuff like Apocalypse Now, Platoon, etc., and just assuming it's a racist movie because of blackface Robert Downey Jr. That is essentially what Taming the Shrew has become. A play completely misunderstood as just a form of sexist bigotry and abuse when it is nothing to do with that at all. It's a fucking parody of a story that was way, way worse and bigoted. And that's the irony. Taming the Shrew was actually forward-thinking in its day. It just looks backward and present view, which is part of the problem. People view everything in the past in modern view instead of trying to understand it in the perspective of the history it was in. And this is just one of the best examples of that. And then on top of that, the worst insult is that the schools are completely oblivious to it. Chaucer is such an obvious influence on Shakespeare. He literally practically calls it out multiple times in his own work. And yet most people are completely brain dead about this. It's hardly ever brought up in the quote-unquote schools. And so we get plays like Taming the Shrew, which is blatantly misunderstood because nobody knows how... nobody knows of the influence of Shakespeare. Or what have you. Fuck. Sorry. I kind of went on a tangent there. I apologize. It's just... This is just really pissing me off. Like, people should know about this way more than they do. And that's why I made this video. Or podcast, I mean. Apologies. And yeah. That's going to do it for today, okay? So, see you guys later. Goodbye.